You thought you were going to go cheat on your husband. He found out and gave you the boot. Good. Good. Well done to the husband.
My emotional affair cost me everything. I thought he'd forgive me. I just wanted a break, but I lost everything. Hi, True Story. I never imagined I'd be writing into your channel. Honestly, I used to watch your videos silently, judging the women who ruined their own relationships, and thought, that could never be me. I figured I had common sense. I figured I had a good man. I figured I could play with fire and not get burned. But I did get burned. Badly. And the truth is, I burned it all down myself. My name's Diane, and I'm 34 years old. I was married for almost 8 years to my husband, Theo. We met back in 2013, started dating in 2014, and tied the knot the following year. He wasn't flashy or loud. He wasn't the bad boy I had dated in the past. Theo was steady, focused, loving, and the most loyal man I've ever known. He always came home on time, always called to check on me. He remembered small details like how I liked my tea with one sugar or how I hated loud chewing during movies. He just knew me. And for a long time, I knew him too. We weren't perfect, but we had a rhythm. Until I messed it all up. I'm going to try to be honest here, even if it makes me sound like a terrible person. I think people need to hear the full story from my mouth, not just from his perspective or from assumptions. Maybe someone out there will relate. Maybe someone will learn from me. About a year and a half before our marriage ended, things started feeling stale. I was working in marketing at a mid-sized company, and we had just returned from a delayed honeymoon in Europe. I should have been happy, but something in me started craving excitement again. I don't even know how to describe it, other than this buzzing in my chest that made me feel like life was passing me by. We didn't have kids, and Theo had started working longer hours after getting promoted to project lead at his firm. That's when I started spending more time with a new coworker named Malik. Malik was funny, charming, and always had a story to tell. He had a way of making me laugh during boring meetings or reminding me how attractive I still was. It wasn't full-on flirting at first, just light jokes and banter, but over time, things blurred. We started eating lunch together most days. We started DM each other after hours. He complimented me often, stuff Theo had honestly stopped doing, and I let it happen. I encouraged it, even when I knew it was wrong. I told myself, it's harmless. That's what I kept saying. I never slept with him. I want to be clear about that. We never kissed, but emotionally, I was crossing lines, and I didn't want to admit it. Around this time, I told Theo I needed space to reconnect with myself. I brought up the idea of taking a solo vacation, just me. I framed it like a self-care journey, which, to be fair, is something I'd seen other women doing on Instagram. I told him I wanted to visit New York for a week. I said I'd stay with a friend from college, do some sightseeing, clear my head. I did not tell him that Malik was going to be there during the same time for a conference, because truthfully, there was no conference. We planned it. We planned to meet up, hang out, maybe grab dinner, and just be together outside of work for once. Again, I wasn't planning on sleeping with him, but I wanted that thrill. I wanted to feel pursued again. I wanted to feel alive. And looking back, I realized how incredibly selfish that sounds, because Theo would have never done something like this to me. He didn't deserve what I was doing behind his back. So what happened? I bought the tickets, I packed my bags, I even got a new dress just in case things went further than expected. I justified it by saying I deserved to feel beautiful again. But 2 days before my flight, Theo came home from work and told me to sit down. I'll never forget his face. He looked calm, too calm. His voice didn't shake. He just asked me, "Who is Malik?" I felt my stomach drop. I tried to play dumb, but he already knew. Turns out Theo had been suspicious for a while. He saw how I lit up when Malik texted me. He noticed I started locking my phone. He even overheard part of a voice note when I forgot to turn my Bluetooth off one morning. He did some digging. I guess one of his friends works in IT and helped him pull some metadata from my cloud backup. I don't even know how, but he had screenshots, DMs, calendar screenshots, even a draft email where I'd written out my excitement about the trip to Malik. I was caught. Theo looked at me and said, "You don't have to go to New York, because when you come back, I won't be here. In fact, we won't be anything anymore." I broke, right there in the living room. I begged him to let me explain. I told him nothing had happened. I swore I hadn't slept with Malik. I pointed out that I hadn't even gone on the trip yet. I said, technically, I didn't cheat. But he wasn't hearing it. To him, the betrayal had already happened. Theo didn't yell. He didn't curse. He didn't break anything. He just said, "Intent is enough for me. You wanted to betray me. You just didn't get the chance." That line still echoes in my mind. He slept in the guest room that night, and the next morning, he left. I tried calling his phone dozens of times. I texted paragraphs. Nothing. 4 days later, I was served with the divorce papers. Just like that. He didn't even wait to hear me out. I canceled the trip. I blocked Malik. I told my job I needed time off because I was going through a crisis. I couldn't eat for days. I cried until my eyes were swollen. I went to his mother's house to talk to her, and she told me she was disappointed but not surprised. Apparently, I had been distant for months, and she suspected something was up. I tried everything to get Theo to talk to me. I wrote him letters. I emailed him. I even showed up at his office once, only for him to walk past me like I didn't exist. I told myself, give it time. He just needs space. He'll come around. But he didn't. The divorce finalized in less than 3 months. He waived alimony. We split the condo and savings evenly. He said he didn't want anything from me except distance. It hurt so bad. I was still in love with him, still wanted our marriage, still believed we could repair things. But the door had been closed and locked and bolted shut. A few months later, I got fired from my job. Apparently, Malik had told a few people what happened, and HR got wind of our inappropriate relationship. I wasn't officially let go because of that, but let's just say they found a convenient way to push me out. Budget cuts, they claimed. Since then, it's been a downward spiral. I've applied to over 70 jobs. I've burned through my savings. I had to move into a smaller apartment. Most of my friends picked sides and didn't choose mine. My own mother told me, "You should have known better." And maybe I should have, but it still feels unfair. I didn't cheat. I didn't go on the trip. I backed out. Isn't that worth something? I keep asking myself, what if he had just talked to me more? What if we had gone to therapy? I would have confessed everything. I would have tried to fix it, but he just left. He was done. And now, nearly a year later, I'm still picking up the pieces. I'm writing in because I need people to understand that not all betrayals are physical. Sometimes they start in the mind, in the heart. And if you don't check yourself, you'll end up like me, standing in the ruins of something that once felt safe and sacred. I want to send in a part 2, maybe before you even read this on the channel. That email will go into what happened after the divorce. I found out Theo moved on. I'll explain how I tried again to get him back once I got clarity, only to learn he was dating someone new. That part, it shattered what was left of my pride. I'm not looking for sympathy. I just want the truth out there. Sometimes you don't have to go all the way to lose everything. Sometimes the intention is enough to ruin what took years to build. That's all for now. Diane. Subject: I thought I could win him back, but he was already gone. Hi, true story. It's Diane again. I don't know if you've already read my first email on the channel or not, but I wanted to send in the second part like I said I would, while the emotions are still raw and real. I don't know if this even matters to anyone, but for me, writing this out is like therapy. ugly, painful therapy. It's the kind where you leave more broken than when you walked in, but you need it to get better. If you don't remember, I was the woman who asked her husband, Theo, for a solo trip to New York. I told him I wanted time to reconnect with myself, but really, I had planned it to see my coworker, Malik, the same man I had emotionally entangled myself with. I never went on the trip. Theo found out and divorced me anyway. I thought he'd eventually forgive me. I thought I could fix it. I was wrong. So here's the second part of the story, the part where I tried to claw my way back to a man who had already decided I no longer existed. After the divorce was finalized, I spent weeks in denial. I convinced myself that Theo was just reacting from a place of hurt. I figured after some space, he'd come around. I genuinely believed that once the dust settled, he'd see that I didn't physically cheat, and he'd realize we could repair what was broken. So I made a plan. I started therapy. I went every Tuesday at 3 p.m. without fail. Not because I was trying to look good for Theo, but because I genuinely needed to understand how I could throw away something so sacred over the excitement of a man I didn't even really like. That's the truth. Malik wasn't my type, not long term. He was just a distraction from the monotony I felt, a bad choice in a moment of weakness. Therapy helped me peel back a lot of my internal mess. I had this deep, unresolved fear of growing old and feeling invisible. I didn't want to feel like just someone's wife. I wanted to feel like me. That fear made me reckless. I won't lie, at first I blamed Theo. I thought, if he had just been more romantic, if he had just complimented me more. But therapy made me stop that. Theo didn't make my choices. I did. Still, knowing that didn't make the silence any easier. He never reached out, never checked in, never even responded to my birthday text that I sent in October, 2 months after the divorce. I'd written a short message. Hope you're well. Just thinking about you. Happy birthday. I stared at those 3 gray dots for 30 minutes after sending it, hoping he was typing something back. He wasn't. By December, I had lost my job, my home, and most of the people I thought were my friends. One of our mutuals, Regina, invited me to brunch. I took that as a good sign, thinking maybe Theo had asked about me, or maybe she was trying to play peacemaker. She wasn't. She basically sat across from me, sipping her mimosa, and said, "Theo's doing really well. He's been working out, traveling a bit, and, well, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but he's seeing someone." I don't remember the rest of that meal. I think I excused myself and sat in my car for 2 hours afterward. I remember scrolling through his socials, which were all still public, looking for any trace of this new woman. There were no couple pictures, but I saw subtle hints. Dinner at a new place in the city, a second glass of wine in a photo, a smiling emoji under a post from some woman named Chloe. That name stuck with me. I cried that night harder than I had when the papers were served, because now it wasn't just a breakup, it was real. He was gone, and worse, someone else had filled the space I used to take up, but I still wasn't ready to let go. January rolled in, and I made the most foolish decision I've made in this entire saga. I showed up to Theo's office, not like a stalker or anything. I knew his team took lunch every Friday around noon. So I figured if I showed up a few minutes before, I could catch him without making a scene. I wore the sweater he used to love on me, brought his favorite snack from a nearby deli. I even put on the perfume he bought me for our 3rd anniversary. I stood outside that building for 20 minutes, rehearsing what I'd say. When he walked out, our eyes met, and it felt like time stopped. For me. Not for him. He paused, sighed, and said, "Diane, what are you doing here?" I handed him the bag and said I just wanted to talk. Just 5 minutes. He didn't take the bag. He said, "You can't keep doing this. I told you, we're done." I said something like, "But people work through worse. I'm in therapy. I've changed." I miss you. I never stopped loving you. I honestly don't remember it word for word, but I laid it all out. Raw, messy, honest. He looked at me and said, "You keep saying you didn't cheat because you didn't go through with it. But to me, you planned to. You made hotel reservations. You bought new lingerie. You texted him things I should have been reading. You just didn't make it to the finish line. I can't be with someone who thinks betrayal only counts when it's physical. That part? That part still stings." Then he said something else I'll never forget. "I hope you heal, but I won't be part of it." And just like that, he walked away again. I didn't try to contact him again after that. That was my final humiliation. But I did finally look up Chloe, the woman he'd been interacting with online. It took me longer than I care to admit, but I pieced together that she was a freelance interior designer, younger than me, softer looking. She had this earthy, grounded vibe, always posting about books and plants and tea. Basically, the opposite of me. At first, I hated her. It felt unfair that she got the version of Theo I helped build. I stood by him during his broke years, supported him through layoffs, encouraged him to go back to school. I was the one eating ramen with him when he couldn't afford steak. But now that I've sat with it, I don't hate her. I envy her. She got a version of him that I poisoned. She gets the reward of his healing. That's my cross to bear. It's been almost 14 months since the divorce now. I'm working part-time at a bookstore. It's humbling but peaceful. I rent a tiny one-bedroom apartment that gets way too cold in the winter and smells like curry from the neighbors. I see a different therapist now, one who specializes in relationship trauma and accountability. And here's what I've learned. Love doesn't always come with second chances. Some people will leave after the first betrayal, and they're allowed to. Intent matters. Even if you never go all the way, if your heart was already walking away, the damage is already done. You don't always get to be the victim in your own story. Sometimes you're the villain, and that's a hard truth to swallow. Healing means letting go of what you wish had happened. It means accepting what did happen. I still think about Theo every day. I still wish things were different. I still wonder if he'll ever read these words and feel even a flicker of the love we once had. But I know he's gone. I ran into Malik at a gas station not long ago. He looked surprised to see me. We made awkward small talk, and then he asked, "You ever end up going to New York?" I said no. He chuckled and said, "Shame. Could have been a fun trip." I didn't even respond. I just paid for my coffee and left, because that's who I risked it all for, a man who saw it as a missed adventure. Not as the nuclear bomb it was for me. That moment alone told me everything I needed to know. Theo was the blessing, Malik was the distraction, and I lost the blessing chasing the distraction. So that's the full story, or at least as much as I can bear to share. I know people in the comments will probably say I deserved it, that I should have known better, that I got exactly what I signed up for, and they're right. But I also hope someone out there, some woman sitting on the edge of temptation, someone feeling bored or neglected, reads this and pauses, because the cost of harmless fun is way higher than you think. And sometimes you don't realize the value of what you had until you're standing in the ashes of it. I'd give anything to go back to that night. Theo asked me, "Who is Malik?" and tell him the truth, to throw my phone away, to cry and confess and save us. But I didn't. And now I live with that. If you choose to read this, thank you for hearing me out. Thank you for letting women like me speak, even when the truth is ugly. I may send an update a year from now. Who knows where I'll be by then? Hopefully in a better place. Maybe with a bit more peace. Maybe finally with acceptance. But for now, this is me. Diane.